Hello everybody, this is JTML9681. First of all, I'm not trying to get involved in YouTube drama or film drama or music drama or anything like that. Since this is the hot topic right now, I mean, it's kind of like a two-in-one to me. Because it's James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, refusing to see the new Ghostbusters movie. And, of course, the new Ghostbusters movie itself. Now, I had to say, James had put some pretty good thought into why he does not want to see this movie. So I am not against James at all. And for people who claim to be feminist, I will tell you, James is not against feminism when it comes to a Ghostbusters movie. He just didn't like how it all just came out of nowhere. Now, of course, I'm on Wikipedia, and I know Wikipedia is not always correct. But this is the quickest thing I could come up with to look at the plot and everything. So let's go ahead and look at this, and then I'll give you my thoughts. There are these women who are a pair of unheralded authors who wrote a book posting that ghosts are real. A few years later, one of them lands prestigious teaching on position at Columbia University, but her book resurfaces and she is laughed out of the academia. Now when ghosts invade Manhattan, one reunites with another. They team up with a nuclear engineer and a subway worker to save the world from a mysterious, evil, and powerful demon known as Rowan, or however you pronounce it, W-R-O-W-A-N. This character can exercise control over human forms. Okay. There are cameos of Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, who is a cab driver, Sigourney Weaver, Ernie Hudson, Annie Potts, and Ozzy Osbourne. Okay, whatever. I've never been a fan of Ozzy Osbourne. I'm just going to put it like that. So basically, this is a movie, a reboot movie, being in 3D supernatural comedy film for the Ghostbusters franchise. That's fine. I mean, I don't mind CGI if it's done right. But here's the problem that I have. For me, what would have worked that would make me want to see the movie is all the original cast come back. If Bill Murray didn't want to make any cameos to where you actually see him, they could have done a Charlie's Angels thing. You never really saw Charlie, except you seen like a shadowy figure of him. I think he wore glasses is what I remember. And the only thing physically that you ever actually see of him is his hand as he pulls the curtain back when that missile's coming toward him, before it gets reprogrammed to turn around and come back to where it was shot from. Those are the only times you ever actually see anything of Charlie. Other than that, you just hear him talking on a phone on the other side as a speaker, and that's where the angels can hear Charlie and speak back to him. So they could have done that with Bill Murray as the Ghostbusters, like the other three who were there or whatever, are like, we're not getting any younger. We need to move this on, but to younger people who can do the same kind of things and keep this legacy of us Ghostbusters, going. But who are we going to find and train who are worthy of this? It's not one of those kind of jobs where just anybody can come and audition. That whole cliche thing. And then, of course, if it's the same people, that would have been fine if they showed up. Maybe some of them, maybe two of them got dragged in by two others or something, And then, like Dan Aykroyd, Ernie Hudson, and I always forget his real name. He played Egon. Actually went with them on like small calls that would have been good for training and such. so that they can get the basic understanding of being a Ghostbuster and all that. Maybe, they do like a couple small calls and whatever, and the first one is a success. And then like the second one of them makes a mistake, and then the next one, another person makes another kind of mistake, but yet they still made successes otherwise, but the mistakes need to be accounted for, the whole 9 yards, It's like quick clips back and forth and all that represents that. And then all of a sudden, they get a huge call. Okay. So now, like say Dan Aykroyd or something, for example, because of course Bill Murray would not actually be seen. That may have been good for Bill Murray at this point in his film age. I say film age, whatever. From what I understand, Bill Murray doesn't even want to be in Ghostbusters films anymore. and like say Dan Aykroyd goes with them to this big one to pretty much guide them because they've never done a big call. And this ends up, they work just as a good team, a great team. And they accomplish it greatly. And they're at the office and talking, just doing whatever, having a good time, whatever the case. And then all of a sudden they get another big call. But of course the girls don't know exactly how big it is. They just think it's another big call like the one they just did. Of course they don't realize also what was going on in other scenes, what was building up to that. So now, Dan Aykroyd takes the other 2 Ghostbusters, with the exception of Bill Murray, and kind of like whispers to them just how big this is. We're not going to actually guide them through this one. They need to do it on their own. But let's set up a plan of how we're going to follow them and make sure they're doing it correctly. Something like that. That would have been awesome. And like at the end, they're congratulating each other, congratulating themselves. Manhattan is congratulating them and whatever the case. And then all of a sudden, Bill Murray comes up on like the speaker or whatever to publicly thank them and congratulate them in front of everybody and stuff like that. And then at that point, all the Ghostbusters have fully retired. And then these new Ghostbusters, it's like the original cast passes the torch on to the new Ghostbusters. That, I will tell you, I would love to see that. That would be great. Because at least they're doing something right to pass the torch on. And not just throwing stuff out in the middle of something from nothing. And that's what this reboot is. They threw something into the middle of something big from out of nowhere. And just expect people to just say, oh, well, it's Ghostbusters. Oh, now it's women. Oh, yeah, this is going to be great. No. They didn't even plan this out good. To keep a franchise going, with newer cast and whatnot, to keep the franchise the way it is, but just like with newer cast and whatnot, you've got to pass the torch. You can't just drop it and just expect somebody else to pick it up and keep going the way it was. No, you've got to pass the torch. And that's where Nintendo dropped the ball when it came to the NES Ghostbusters game, I'll tell you that. Of course, Sega Master System tried to get NES to pass the torch onto them and then tried to fix the problem, which didn't do as well, but it was better. But that's another story. So, that's my thoughts on the Ghostbusters reboot and James Rolfe refusing to watch this movie. Because I'm not going to watch it either. Because this is utter nonsense when it comes to Ghostbusters. And of course, from what I'm seeing, and I am very happy about, it's just like with NES games and SNES games that were actually horrible, turned out to be, approved and everything by LJN, which technically makes it an LJN game. I am very glad this was not Michael Bay. I'm sorry, people, Michael Bay makes horrible movies. Absolutely horrible. And even if Michael Bay's movie is ridiculously horrible, as any of them are, if he's not being kept in check. That's why Pearl Harbor, Armageddon, The Rock, what was it, Bad Boys, with Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. Michael Bay was kept in check. That's how those movies were way better than any of the Transformers and the Ninja Turtle movies. That's why I won't see any of those. As much as I have been wanting to see a movie with Bebop and Rocksteady, there are a couple things about that I'll quickly say here because has nothing to do with Ghostbusters. But Bebop is supposed to be taller than Rocksteady, and they didn't take something out of the show as they did with the game, the first arcade Ninja Turtles game. As from the show, I don't remember if it was the very first encounter or maybe in the second or third encounter, but it was very early in the encounters Bebop and Rocksteady had with the Turtles, where Rocksteady had grabbed a couple of them. I can't remember. I think maybe Leonardo and Raphael, and I don't remember if he tossed them to the side of a building or what. And then he says, "Oh, did I hurt you?" And then he pulled out his gun and said, "This make you better." And then he just closed his eyes and his mouth, gapped open and just starts shooting everywhere, going crazy. Well, that's the same thing he did with his gun in the game. They took that right off the show. They should have done that in the movie. That would have at least been off the show. At least. Don't make the Turtles look like Shrek on steroids. I'm sorry, that's what they look like. Oh my gosh, and Michelangelo was not a sexist person. Well, I can't say person, but individual. He may have liked April O'Neil. He may have liked other characters, like in the third movie. I mean, that makes sense for Michelangelo, but he's not going to sit there and try to get himself some. Michelangelo wanted to have a relationship with somebody. That was one thing he always wanted. I mean, that was easier for me to figure out as a kid. That was the whole point of that, but anyway. At least Michael Bay had nothing to do with Ghostbusters. So, if there's any good thing about it, I had to say that's one good thing. Other than that, this movie is a piece of crap. I am not going to be going to see it. And I defend James Rolfe. And not having anything to do with being against feminism. It's about the concept of a new cast of Ghostbusters coming out of nowhere with no backstory of how they got into it. So this kind of a decision, I think, was just rushed beyond belief. So that's all I got to say about this, folks. So until then, when we have another video in my ranting series, this is JTMNT 9681 signing off, and I hope to see you all next time. Laters.